meeting of the April 6th to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Hitterdale. Commissioner Hitterdale.
Here.
Commissioner Rush.
Here.
Commissioner Marashi.
Here.
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Here.
Chair Christie.
Here.
Commissioner Garcia.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Becerra.
Here.
Commissioner Hardy.
Here.
Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you
That's
so
a
much.
compliment, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would everyone please rise, and would Commissioner Hitterdale lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Does any member of the public wish to speak to the commission on non-agendized items? I know you are agendized, so but we have to ask. You're agendized, so we're going to call you when your property comes up, okay? On non-agendized items, okay? If not, then we're moving forward. Let's go to the consent calendar, and I want to separate A and B, okay? Because of the fact that under B, there's no excused absences, but on the approval of the minutes, I believe we do have an amendment.
Yes, Chairperson Christie, I believe the minutes need to be updated to reflect the fact that I did attend the past commission meeting, and also each of my votes need to be added to the minutes. They're missing also.
Oh, myself?
Pardon me?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, all right.
I think it'll be fixed. Thank you.
We're so pleased to have you. No, we don't want you to.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other corrections? If not, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as corrected by Janelle. I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Marachi, second by Commissioner Becerra. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried. And one
because
abstention.
I wasn't here, so I can't approve them.
That's right.
Well, I guess based on that, I can't vote either because I
No.
wasn't here either. So.
And Commissioner Rush. Okay. And speaking of Commissioner Rush, we are so pleased to have you on board. Would you mind telling us just a little bit for the audience to know that you're the man of the town?
Well, I don't know you, sir, but I've known Phil for an awfully long time and most of these other folks here for a very long time. I've lived in town for 30 years, and I'm past president of both Washington Square and Wilshire Square, and have served also on the board of French Park, historic French Park neighborhood. I've been on the board of the Santa Ana Historical Preservation Society for many years. I do the downtown walking tour for the Historical Society. I chaired the restoration of the Spurgeon Clock Tower. Years ago, I was a redevelopment commissioner for the city. I'm divorced, have 2 kids that are grown, and I'm also on the board of a newly organized organization meant to duplicate in Orange County what has been done so well in LA County. You know it as LA Conservancy. The new group in Orange County is called Preserve Orange County. Not very imaginative perhaps, but it does say what we do. So professionally, I'm Senior Vice President of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and my office is in Cerritos. We do have a branch here in town, but I work in Cerritos. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, and we're so thrilled to have you on board with us. Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Moving on, Commissioner Communication Disclosures.
I would like to disclose that Chairperson Alberta Christie and myself visited some of the homes on Saturday, visit all of them actually, and unfortunately we didn't get to talk to the two homeowners that are here, but we got to talk to one of them.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you. Next business is our regular business. Okay, this is the time and place for the public hearing of an item number 1 and for Historic Resource Commission application number 2016-27 and Historic Registered Categorization number 2016-29. This time staff will do the presentation on this item. And welcome, Mr. Ivan.
Chairman Christie, before we begin, we're doing it in sort of a, I guess we've done this before, but we're going to have all of the, Ivan is going to make all the presentations for tonight because one of our other historic preservation planners is out ill. So he's just going to go through, do all 3 presentations. Don't be too hard on him. Don't, he's read up on all of them, and then we'd like to open the public hearings after the staff presentation for each of the individual ones, if that's all right.
The reason why we're having them to do the homes as the items are coming up so that we can remember what the homes look like, okay? And that's why we would like the presentation as they're doing, then have the hearing. And look, as we're looking at them, it will refresh our memory, and we can have questions on each of the ones.
All right.
Okay? All right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Does everybody agree? Right?
That's fine.
Fine? Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. As Canada stated, I'm filling in for Holly on a couple of the items, so I'll do the best of my ability to present these here. So before you tonight, we actually have 3 applications for your consideration to place these sites on the Santa Ana Register of Historical Properties, and I've listed these above. The first one is 2415 North Heliotrope Drive. The second request is for a property located at 821 North Olive Street, and the third one here is 1923 North Westwood Avenue. So I will cover the first one. Oh, before I do that, just to refresh our memory on the contributive category, which is all 3 of these applications staff has reviewed and assigned them to fit the contributive category.
My understanding is the first home is categorized as key.
I think there was, let me check.
It is contributive.
It is contributive, yes.
We had a question about that.
Right.
What makes this?
Yes.
Okay, so it's now contributive.
Yes, all 3 applications before you tonight fall under the contributive category. So as I mentioned, the contributive category is for a building or structure, object or site that contributes to the overall character of the history and neighborhood or the district here in Santa Ana, and is a good example of the period of architecture. So we'll go on to the first one here. So the first application before you tonight is for the Dr. Patterson house, located at 2415 North Heliotrope. And this is a roughly 2,100 square foot home, Spanish colonial. Sorry, and I'll go through that a little bit. Spanish colonial, located in the Floral Park neighborhood. The property is an L-shaped structure, clad smooth stucco with clay tile roofing. It also has 2 chimneys, one of which is on the, east and north of the property there. The garage was, I'd like to mention, the garage was extended towards the front, but it meets all the historical requirements for consistency to place the property on the category. There is a covered porch, and that runs through the rest of the front facade. That porch is traditional Spanish revival style. And the windows here, they're traditional casement windows with a peekaboo on the upper half. It was my understanding that the house is a perfect example of the Spanish revival. This was one of the items covered by Holly, so I'm trying to do my best on this here. But the home was constructed in 1927, and the first tenants were the Pattersons. It was Dr. and Mrs. Patterson, and they were both very active in the community and in Santa Ana. Mr. Patterson actually held a membership with the board of Orange County Medical Association, and Mrs. Patterson belonged to the Women's Auxiliary for the organizations, and they were both very avid bridge players and held very active parties at the home. Let's see. They had one child, a boy named Douglas, and the last of my notes, sorry, I have to look down. Dr. Edwin Kilburn was actually partnered with Mr. Patterson, and they both held practice here in downtown Santa Ana at the Moore Building. And that, as you know, it is a very important building to our downtown's history as a landmark building.
Which building were they in?
The Moore Building.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a little bit of the history of this this home. The property owner is actually here tonight if you have any further questions, and I think he might have actually filled out a card to speak as well.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you,
and
sir.
that concludes my presentation for this item.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Okay. Now, I would like, have we received any written communication?
We have not.
Okay, very good. And now, just a little gavel. Public hearing is now open, and I think we have the homeowner, Mr. Clive Skelton? Correct. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and we're sorry we missed you at your home.
Yes, good evening to everybody. I'm very happy to be here. New resident of Santa Ana, lived in Orange County for 43 years. You may guess by my accent that I wasn't born here. But the interesting thing is that in the UK, I was involved in restoring historic properties there with my brother. He's done probably 30 or 40 over the last 30 years. The last one I did was a 1500 year, not 1500 years old, in the 1500s it was built. But anyway, so yeah, I'm very, very interested in architectural history, preservation of that, and that's why I'm excited about living in Santa Ana, because I think that it's something that's needed, particularly in Southern California. And Mr. Rush, I think listening to your short presentation, you're probably the guy that's going to help a lot on this. If anything I can do, I'll be happy to volunteer.
Well, I wish we had some buildings from the 1500s, but we're short on that. In California, there's more buildings torn down than
that's
fall
the shame,
down.
isn't it? That's the whole problem, the buildings being torn down. I've spent 14 months, a lot of time and a lot of money in not changing the property. So that seems a little weird. But also researching the history of the owners. And the presentation about Dr. Patterson was interesting. Saying he was an avid bridge player sounded a little boring, but this guy really had an exciting life. I did some research. And he was born in Canada. He studied medicine in Boston and in Marburg, Germany, and he was fluent in many languages. And he, in fact, was a commissioned major and accompanied the U.S. forces invading Mexico at the time of Pancho Villa. So, and after World War I, sorry, he was a lieutenant colonel organizing California field hospitals overseas. In 1918, Herbert Hoover sent him to Latvia and Lithuania and Finland to organize food for starving children in Europe after the First World War. So the guy was an exciting guy, and I'm still looking for more information on him. I'm enjoying it. The house, as you could see by the pictures, the only thing that we've really done is extended that garage, because all you could do is get a Model T Ford or a Mini in there, so it's stock length now. But we went to great lengths to not change anything on the building. Even the window that you see in the side of it, we tried to make the garage look like part of the house and not a garage. And that is an original window, which was taken from the rear of the property. The windows are quite exciting. There's a lot of stained glass throughout the house, which is all original, which you can't see there. All the windows are mechanical crank windows, and they work just perfect mechanically, and they're 80 years old. In the backyard, when we started to dig in there, we found something really interesting. In the wall is a fountain, which was, we found out, it's only one of 10 that remain in existence, that I had a historian authenticate it, and it was built by a gentleman called Rufus Keeler. And Rufus Keeler was the general manager and part owner of the Malibu Tile Company. So if anybody of you into ceramics, you'll know that Malibu Tile is probably one of the best examples in the United States. And he actually did this fountain. Now, I haven't restored it yet. It's difficult for me to find somebody to do it, but I'm working on it.
Can we make a condition of your approval tonight that you'll restore the fountain?
I'm sorry?
Can we make a condition of your approval tonight that you'll restore the fountain?
Open my mouth, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're going to do it. Yes. What else can I tell you? Oh, yeah, also in the back is a Mayan fireplace, exterior one, in shape. And I'm told that because it's original, we're okay to keep it, because of the Air Quality Management Board wouldn't allow you to put something like that there now, but it's all original. I guess that's it, really. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I'm looking forward to living here in Santa Ana and help promote the historic Santa Ana, and especially Floral Park, which we've learned to like and love pretty quickly. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission for questions.
Nope. Okay.
We've heard your comments, and then what I'm going to do is to see if there's any more, then not close it and bring it back to the commission for comments. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll have you back up again.
Okay. Thank you. Is that it?
For right now,
I'm
yes.
very hard of hearing. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'm done, right?
Yeah, for
Yes.
right
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Love that accent. Oh my goodness. Okay. Does anyone else in the audience have any more comments? If not, then I declare the public hearing closed to bring it back to the commission for comments now. Commissioner Schaefer.
I wanted to ask our speaker how you said you lived in Orange County for 42 years before you moved to Santa Ana. What took you so long, and where'd you come from? You can just shout it out from there.
You can.
That's right. What took me so long to find Santa Ana?
Yes, since you love old homes.
You'll have to ask my wife that question, because we previously lived in Orange Park Acres.
Okay.
And we needed the property from activities that we had going in our lives, but we don't now. So there, you lived there I lived there for 21 years, and I probably only knew about 3 or 4 neighbors around me. We've been here since October, living in the house, although we've owned it for more than a year, and now I've probably met 103, and got involved in all the activities locally as well. So I think I've seen Ed at a couple of them. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't go away. Any more questions? Commissioner Rush?
Well, my question is, and I don't mean to pick the fly specks out of the pepper, but in the write-up here that was done, it says here, the front entry includes a heavy wooden door with a peekaboo window in its upper half. Shouldn't that be a wicket? Wouldn't that be a wicket? I mean, what is it? Some sort of
no? It's not. It's incorrectly described. It is a big door, and it's wider than the normal door. I guess it's for that age, and it has a stained glass window in the door.
Oh, that doesn't open up, or
It does not open.
oh,
No.
oh. Okay, all right. I mean, it's a, you know, but
Yeah.
we're all about details, you know.
Sure.
So the other question I have, and again, you know, Hallie mentions here about the garage. As one who lives in a colonial revival style house and someone who I've done, you know, quite a bit of research on that style, I can't think in my mind of ever seeing a garage in the front of this style of residence. It's highly unusual, but that's the way it was built originally.
It is. Now,
So all you did was extend the garage by 2 feet.
No.
10.
I think 5 feet.
It was a 10-foot extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what was it, 5 or 10?
It was 10.
10, okay. But I'll give you a little bit more information that goes with that.
Okay.
Mr. Patterson, the owner, had a DMV license for California, number 1001. So he was one of the very first people to actually own a car, I would think. Probably that's why the house was built the way it's built.
Well, normally, of course, it would have been a detached garage, a carriage barn, or a small garage in the back. I mean, my house was built in 26, a year earlier than this one. Well, it was added on to many years ago, but it was originally built as a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
But it's it's separate from the residence, which is typical for that style. I can't think of a home of this vintage with an attached garage. And it was double to start with.
It was.
I had a question on that as well, because again, I wondered about that. We did do additional research to make sure that it was not. There was no other building permits in our files.
Wasn't altered.
What it looked to me, was that at some point there had originally been a pass-through, kind of a porte cochere in the front. There may have been that you might have driven down the driveway to the alley to a garage in the back, because usually that was the standard format for all those houses along the street, and so that was what I interpreted it as being, and then perhaps maybe it was enclosed at some point. The previous roof was just a little shed that stuck out only a few feet from.
I mean, it was a flat roof with an eyebrow on it?
No, it was a shed.
Right.
It was a low-angled shed that only stuck a few feet out from the porch there. So it's an interesting mystery. It would be something that would be interesting to research at some point if we could get really, really old aerial photos, but we don't have that information in our building permit files of it ever, having been converted from something else. But I too made that same question, because there's a house right across the street from me that is exactly that same, with that long front porch in the front, and it has the drive-through porte cochere to the garage in the back. So it's interesting. It's a mystery, but we can't always know all the answers when a house is almost 100 years old.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I have a comment on that. I've been to this house over the years when it's been on the market, and my guess is the garage is original because of the design of the house being the L shape that was mentioned. The backyard has very much of a courtyard type feel versus a traditional backyard, and there is nowhere to have a 2-car garage back there. So I think that it was sort of pushed back a little bit, and the backyard was a bit smaller to have this courtyard feel, because it's very much integrated with the evidence of the fountain, and other elements of the fireplace, the things that are there.
We just don't know. Yeah,
and there are homes in LA County, in the Hollywood Hills, etc., that do have that are Spanish, similar vintage, that have garages on the front. So it's possible, to see that. Just not typical in our area.
No.
I don't think the property has got the width to put a garage down or drive down the side.
It doesn't. Yeah,
it does not. It's too close. And like you say, that the the fountain that was built at the same time
Yeah.
is right
It'd be
immediately
right on
behind
what
there. So
would be a
it must have
driveway.
been original.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know.
So this was a status symbol to say, we
I
have a
think so.
right- to classify
Yeah,
it
probably.
as a status symbol that we're here and we can afford the,
Yeah.
giving it.
Well,
a
we'll
go.
okay, we'll limit you then to just having to restore the fountain in the back and have a cocktail reception for us. It'll be
Okay,
fine.
I'll
Yeah.
be happy to
I do have
invite you.
one other comment. I'd like to compliment you on the job you did extending the garage, because if you hadn't seen it before, even if you were in the neighborhood and just casually looked at the house, you really wouldn't notice there's any difference whatsoever.
Right,
So
we took-
I appreciate the level of detail that you went to in your renovation.
Thank you. We did. We took special attention to make sure
It shows.
nothing changed.
Any other comments from the commissioner, from Mr. Skilton? Thank you, sir. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I entertain a motion. Okay.
I'll move that we approve the request.
I'll second that.
You have to state the whole thing.
I move that we grant, what am I? Okay. I move that we adopt a resolution approving Historic Resources Commission application number 2016-27 and Historic Register categorization number 2016-29
Okay.
for the property on Heliotrope.
Moved by Commissioner Rush, second by,
I'll second that.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Now, moving on. Okay, this is the time and place for the public hearing on item number 2 for Historic Resource Commission application number 2017-01 and Historic Register categorization number 2017-01. Staff now, presentation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the second item before you tonight is for the Travis House. This is located at 821 North Olive Street here in Washington Square neighborhood. As you can see, it's a single-story Spanish, but a little bit different. It's an eclectic revival. We've categorized that because of the attention to detail in the materials. It was a difficult research for this property here. There wasn't anyone with significant importance, or at least what staff has found, but we've identified something very not common seen, that the house changed ownership quite frequently. And so we were able to identify a few of the homeowners and renters that resided at the property here. I'm just going to list a few of those. The original one, or at least one of the original owners that we were able to identify, was Mr. Casey Travis. And nothing really was found on the occupation or education or anything in regards to Mr. Travis, but we've also identified Fred Wagner, and he was just a laborer, an everyday kind of working guy. Mrs. Golden L. Walker, she was actually a telephone operator, and the last that I was able to find was Mr. Harry Armstrong, and he was just, like I mentioned, an everyday kind of working kind of guy. He was a gardener. So that was very interesting for us to, normally you find someone that really pops out in Santa Ana history, but it was very nice to identify that the house went through a lot of different people that were obviously part of Santa Ana, but in a different way. The home has clay tile roofing, as you can see in the image, and it was very interesting to see both the gable style and the shed at the front. The gable covers the kitchen, where the dining room is located, and the shed is right where the porch is. And it's a little bit different than the normal archway. It's an elongated arched porchway, and we can see a two-step approach to the front door, and you can see a little bit of the painted ornate tiles, which are also seen as medallions in the driveway archway there. The wood windows are both casement and single-hung windows, and it's a fairly symmetrical rectangular home, and in the back is a single-car garage after the driveway. So that's a little bit about the home there, and very nice landscaping that goes along with the architectural style. And the property owner is here as well, in case you have any follow-up questions. That concludes my presentation for this item.
Any questions for staff at this time? Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much. Madam Secretary, any written communication?
There are not.
Okay. And then with that, I now am opening up the public hearing, and we have the homeowner, Mr. Kurt Merlo. Sorry we missed you on Sunday. We spoke to your neighbor across the street.
Oh, I hope it was a nice conversation.
Yep.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry I don't have a lot prepared. I was just informed that I didn't realize this was a participatory event. So, but I just wanted to introduce myself and say hello. And me and my wife, Rita, this is our first home, and we're absolutely thrilled. To say that it's our dream home would be an understatement. We're just so happy here. And I've lived in Orange County for 12 years, and Santa Ana is definitely my favorite city, and we don't plan on moving. And going through the process of looking at homes and shopping around and seeing a lot of gorgeous homes that had been renovated, quote unquote, and changed for what they may have thought was the better, but what to me was a change on the historic value of the home was quite shocking. This house has been preserved pretty well. The windows are all original. So it's kind of exciting to think that here's an opportunity for us to, take action in preserving this value. My wife and I did some research, and as Ivan pointed out, there's not anyone of real significance here, but something that is a side note that was very interesting was that I found that I had a relative who had lived in Santa Ana in the 1920s, and she was quite popular. And in the Ancestry.com, she was mentioned over a couple hundred times in the papers. She was an entertainer of some kind. But when I went by to visit the home where she had lived, is a parking lot. And I thought, this is kind of exciting for us to take part in this, to preserve the fact that so that we can't change the house, and anyone who comes after us won't be able to change the house, and maybe possibly in 100 years, if I still have family here, that they would be able to see where I lived. So this is exciting to be a part of this. It's an honor, and thank you so much for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. Okay. Are there any other comments from the audience? If not, then I declare the public hearing is now closed. I'm bringing it back to the commissioners. Mr. Rush.
Just a comment, and I used to live just up the street from this house, so I'm familiar with it. I lived there on that cul-de-sac, on that portion of Olive, south of 10th. It's very likely that the reason there were so many owners of your house initially was because it was built in 28, which right before the Great Depression. So the house that I live in, as an example, which was built in 26, went through, my gosh, there must have been 14 owners during the Depression between 26 and 39, when the lady I bought it from bought it in 39, and it was astonishing how many people, but it just, because of the financial calamity, that's what happened. So that may have affected ownership at your residence as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer, Commissioner Schaefer.
This was my listing when Kurt and Rita bought it, and just a little interesting sidelight is that we had, it actually fell out of escrow twice. We had, I think, a total of 8 or 9 offers on the house, so congratulations, you're the biggest loser or the biggest winner or whatever, you're the last man standing, you won Survivor. That's what I'm trying to say. Lots of people wanted this house, and for obvious reasons. It's got amazing curb appeal. It's not a big house, but it is so adorable, and lots of people fell in love with it. It was very well kept. And in terms of people that owned it, the seller that they bought from, Jolie Clemens, lived there I think about 10 years, and Jolie does a lot of graphic design for album covers, etc. Her number one client is Gwen Stefani, which she literally follows Gwen around like she's with her probably 60% of her time. So she's perhaps the most famous person that lived there. I don't know, or associated with famous people. But so there was somebody that had a little bit of an interesting job that lived there.
Anyone else? Comment? Yeah. Okay. Then I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'd like to move approval. Let me get my numbers right here. I'd like to move approval of the Historic Resources Application 2017-01 and Historic Register Categorization 2017-01 for the property located at 821 North Olive Street.
I would like to second that.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Schaefer, second by Commissioner Marashi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No? Congratulations. Welcome. Thank you so much. And we hope that your family will, this is their estate, right? Okay, moving on to item number 3.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. So for item 3, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this name. Wasn't familiar with it until this morning. So Stylinaus, I believe it's Greek, house. This property is located at 1923 North Westwood Avenue. As you can see, it's in the single-story ranch style constructed in 1951, approximately close to 1,800 square feet there. This was built by George Costa, and I'll go over the history of the home and the individual owner in a bit. But the original owner was Demetrius, and forgive me, Stylinaus, and he was born in 1902 in Greece. He then moved to, or immigrated to the United States via Ellis Island in New York in 1928. And he was an educated man and later moved to Los Angeles. As he moved over to Los Angeles, he acquired a job in teaching. And that is actually where he met his wife, Frida. Just going to go over the notes. And Frida was also a teacher, and I guess they fell in love and were eventually married in 1948. And they both taught at the School of Exceptional Children. And this school was more geared towards children with mental disabilities or challenges. And so they both cared for for helping people and helping them move along as the years progressed. And Mr. I'm just going to butcher the name again, Stylinaus, received a PhD, and so he later wrote a few books, some in Greek about his life in Greece, but later in English. And when I mentioned the builder, George Costa, he was actually married to Frida's sister, Anna. So I guess that's how the whole relation for the owner-builder. And then later on, sadly, Frida passed away in 1974, but the doctor remarried Alice Keyes McIntosh in 1975, and he was later known to become a well-known philanthropist and pioneer in the education of mentally handicapped children. And he still participated in silent auctions for the American Speech and Hearing Impaired Association, which he was also a member of. but unfortunately he passed away of pneumonia in 1983, and Alice continued to live in the house until the current owners procured it. The house, as I mentioned, is a ranch-styled home. It's stucco and topped with asphalt shingles, and it's common to the ranch style is very low-profile roof, very wide, and encompasses the majority of the property, the width of the property there. As you can see, the massing horizontal, as I mentioned, with the front-facing garage, and then vertical wood siding. There's also a large brick planter that you can see under there's two openings or porches. What I'd like to say is like almost like light ventilated areas in the roof with exposed rafters. There it is. And so the site has also been upgraded to drought-tolerant landscaping and is a good example of old ranch style, but in a way the landscaping kind of brings it into a modern taste. And so this concludes my presentation. I'm not sure the owner is in today.
Here.
Yeah,
They're not here.
but I am here if you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Secretary, any written communication?
There are none.
Okay, none. I now declare the public hearing open. And since the owners are not here, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioner. Do you want to go first, Commissioner Rushing?
Go ahead.
No. Viewing this property on Sunday, okay, it is a gorgeous piece of property, well known. Commissioner Marachi and I met with the owners, and it is a perfect example of landscaping during this drought, that we're in drought-resistant plants. Inside that 3-foot wall, notice that wall, it's 3 foot, and on there, inside is a courtyard where you could sit, and they have it where it is landscaped for you to sit out there, and they have lawn furniture where you sit out there, and it's kind of like a zen type of existence over there. Very, very well-kept property, something that is really a standout in that particular neighborhood. Personally, I think on that sets it apart. Very dedicated couple, husband and wife, that owns that property. As far as, pride, oh my goodness, I wish we could clone their pride in the city to everyone in the city. So if you do get a chance, that you have a day that you're in that particular, just drive by, and you've got to see this property. So I am so thankful that they are considering to put this on a historic resource, and that we can say that, yeah, this is a ranch style, and this is something that the city is very proud of on this structure of the home. Would you?
Oh, I absolutely echo all your comments. And the one thing that I remember is we heard them working on the home in the back, and so we knocked on the door and just introduced ourselves and just said, no, we don't want to disturb you, and just wanted to meet you. And they were like overwhelmingly insisting that we come in and talk and look at the home from the inside and everything else. So you could really see that these people love their home and are going to take very good care of it.
Okay, Commissioner Schaefer.
I actually knew Alice, who lived there previously, and I sold it when she passed away to Davin and Martha.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Is there any home in Santa Ana?
I didn't sell that one, but there's a lot. I'm a blessed guy, I'll admit that. But there's something you should know about the owners. Not only do they have impeccable taste, and you saw that on display, their furniture, they're into mid-century, everything is pure, and they've just done it excellent. They could be in a magazine that's that well done. But Davin Gum is also the guy that restored the building, bought and restored the building where the Chapter 1 is and the Copper Door. He owned the Copper Door Bar for a while, and he sold it now. And he's also developed the Roost, where my personal favorite Scoops ice cream is, but also next door to that, his wife Marta teaches yoga there. So they're very involved in the community, and it's not just this one house. They've done a beautiful job here. They've done a beautiful job on each property they've touched in the city. So I'm very proud to have them as neighbors and friends, and think they did an excellent job here. And the house is very original, and they want it that way. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Sarah?
Well, to add to Commissioner Schaefer's comments, Marta and Davin really did an excellent job on the Pacific Building on 3rd and Broadway. And in fact, I remember when Copper Door was an old billiards hall that they completely restored. They just went to painstaking detail to really make sure that it really popped. It was really reflective of very accurate standards for historic preservation. And I've been in their home, and their backyard is, I don't know if you guys got into the backyard, but
beautiful.
Amazing. It's beautiful. So they have a track record of taking buildings, resurrecting them, and restoring them. They've done it in Long Beach, and they've, as you guys mentioned, here in Santa Ana. So this is just another example of their expertise and their care, and as you guys said, their enthusiasm, because they're still here in our city.
Absolutely.
We're lucky to have them.
Yes, very proud. Okay, any other? If not, then I would like to entertain a motion.
I'll jump in. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving Historic Resources Commission application number 2017-12 and historic register categorization number 2017-11, and that we recommend that the City Council authorize the City Manager and Clerk of the Council to execute the attached Mills Act agreement with Gum Family Trust, subject to non-substantive changes approved by the City Manager and City Attorney.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Becerra, second by Commissioner Schaefer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. We're saving history. We're saving history. Okay. Now, moving on with the agenda, we now have staff comments.
Normally we meet quarterly. There are 4 times a year, but we do have an issue we would like to bring before you relatively soon. So Sarah will be contacting you probably by email to find out when an appropriate time would be in the next couple of weeks. Are Thursday nights good for most people? And at this meeting, we'd like to address some policy issues regarding how we're going to be addressing certain types of projects. Our ordinance requires you as a body to have certain review authority over alterations and modifications to landmarks. And at some point, some of that authority was delegated by you to city staff to do those kinds of review, and we have some questions, and we'd like some interpretation and clarification on some items that we'd like to bring before you. So anyway, it'll be a different, it'll be a meeting that will focus only on policy, and we won't have applications before you at that time. So it should be, I wouldn't say it would be shorter than a regular meeting, but it shouldn't be too long either. So Sarah will contact you, and it'll be fun to see you more than once every 3 months. So.
Okay. All right. Any questions for staff? Okay. Now we'll go to commissioner members' comments. Let's start this way. Commissioner Hardy.
I just want to say congratulations to everyone, and it's very exciting that we're preserving history one property at a time. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to welcome our new colleague, Mr. Tim Rush, to the commission. Glad to have you aboard. And that's all I have.
I also wanted to say, sorry.
Commissioner Garcia.
I'm sorry about that. I also wanted to welcome Commissioner Tim Rush. Thank you for all the work that you do in the community to preserve these historic buildings. And I wanted to say thank you to our homeowners that were here tonight and speaking on behalf of your property.
Commissioner Haverhill.
Yes, I want to welcome my old friend Commissioner Rush also. And usually I thank the owners that are here, but tonight I have to really especially thank both Mr. Skelton and Mr. Merlo for exceptional interest in this, and I want to thank Mr. Orozco also for filling in for very good reports under difficult circumstances.
Commissioner Rush.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you for your nice comments, and congratulations to you homeowners for your diligence in pursuing this process, and obviously for the money, especially you, sir, spent in refurbishing your home, and of course you, sir, purchased your home at a time in Southern California where prices have escalated, of course, dramatically, as you well know. So I had several things I wanted to bring up, and maybe these can be perhaps placed on our agenda for our next meeting, but let me just go down with them quickly. I'd like to, in my packet as I went through it when it was delivered to me on Saturday, I noticed in the back there's an insert here about in 2009, the city of Santa Ana had an award program for outstanding historic preservation projects and had a number of categories, and I'd like to see that brought back. Secondly, one issue that I think we need to look at, and that is some sort of special code enforcement for historic buildings. Hallie's not here to comment, but as she can tell you, and I'm sure I'm not the only person, but I, over the years, have called her on any number of buildings. We only recently, it must have taken 6 years. I know it was 4. But the building that was originally built as a candy manufacturing facility and a shop on East 4th Street, I want to say it was 108 East 4th, it had to be 4 years plus that I chased that property with Hallie and code enforcement because the owner had the building painted and removed some cartouches that were on front of on the building. And I mean, it shouldn't take that long, I mean, to get something like that done. This was, my God, we nearly won World War II in 4 years. So it's just ridiculous. The only example we have in the city of Carpenter Gothic architecture, which is at 718 South Broadway, it's a landmark in the city, in Henninger Park. And that property has gone from owner to foreclosure to short sale to foreclosure to bankruptcy to foreclosure to over the last 20 years. And now it's back in the hands of the bank. And we had an owner who didn't give a rat's behind because he was behind in his payments. And it just breaks my heart to see a landmark like that so horribly abused, and we can't do anything. So my next point is I think we need to address changing the days that we meet. We typically meet the first Thursday of the first month in the quarter. January, is, I'm told, is historically a problem because Hallie's working her tail off in December, closing out applications from the previous year. July is always problematic in that first week because invariably it falls too close to the 4th of July holiday. I'd like to see us move our dates to the second week of the first week of the or first month of the quarter, or some other formula. But I don't think this is working. The other thing is our funding for the reduction of the fees, which you folks benefited from, because at one time, up until 3 years ago, it was about $9,000 to get a property on the Historic Register and Mills Act. $9,000, which as a result, obviously was a huge impediment to having properties put on the register. So I wrote a number of letters about that and spoke at council, and many of us, of course, lobbied to get that reduced, and it was, but that expires in September. So we need to address that. And probably, given timing, we should ask that simply it be moved to the city council calendar as a 85A item to be voted on.
Actually, that is scheduled for your next meeting, for the July meeting, but we could move it up to the study section. That one is scheduled for July, though. Yeah.
What was the other thing I was going to mention? I guess that's it. So that's enough.
Madam Chair, if I might just jump back. Canada, can we make the next meeting not just a study session, but an actual, just regular meeting? And the reason I ask that is because I think the last two items that Mr. Rush brought up are items that this commission, depending on what the discussion entails at that next meeting, may warrant some sort of action, even if it's just a recommendation to council. So rather than it being a study session, I'd like to ask that it just be classified as a regular meeting, so that if there is any recommendations, they're not just punted to the next meeting in July.
Yes, it was our intention to have you be able to take action. So yes, it will be a regular meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Marashi.
I'm just sitting here laughing because it's almost scary to think that you and I have like minds. Because we honestly haven't talked, but a lot of the issues that I have down here that I'm going to talk about are just exactly what we're talking about. So first of all, I want to thank Holly and the staff for documenting all the homes, and for Ivan stepping up to the plate and doing a wonderful job presenting them today. I also want to welcome Commissioner Rush to the commission. It's wonderful to have you, all of your expertise and things like that. It's great. Thank you. One of the things I want to do is I want to read the responsibilities that comes from the Historic Resource Commission page. And out of that, I would like to, again, add some agenda items and also bring up some points. So responsibilities are: consider all matters referred to the city council or city manager. That's number one. Number two, recommend policies and regulations regarding the protection of historic heritage of Santa Ana through the designation of historical properties, historical districts, and neighborhoods. And that's you, the homeowners out there. That's what you just did. And we appreciate that, and I want to thank you for bringing your homes here. Next is, I also wanted to talk about the schedule too, because, I figured we had 3 new commissioners. And when I looked back and looked at it, in just a little over 3 years, we held 8 meetings on the regular dates that they were supposed to be. We had 5 that were canceled. And because of that, we had 6 that were special meetings, and one of those 6 was because we had more work and homes come in than we had planned. So I agree with the schedule. Next, review all requests for exterior work or demolition of historic structures. Recommend policies and regulations regarding the protection, reuse, and rehabilitation of historic properties, exactly like what you mentioned. One of the ones that hit me hard recently that I just learned about, and I was very disappointed that I hadn't learned about it sooner, was a dojo that was on Bristol Street, right near the McDonald's. And what happened in 1965 was Sensei Fumio Demora came to the United States with $300 in his pocket, couldn't speak English, and he settled right there. And he brought 2 forms of karate that had never been introduced to the United States. And he taught them out of that dojo. And towards the end of the years, before that dojo was tore down, he actually developed a whole nother form, and he presented that. He himself, and I'm just going to touch upon it briefly because it's more about the property, of course, as we know, than the person. But he went on to become a 9th degree black belt. And one of the things he did was he became so familiar with all the tools like nunchucks, sickles, and things like that, that people like Bruce Lee came to him at that dojo to learn how to use nunchucks. He also taught numerous other actors how that craft. And when it came time to do the Karate Kid, Chuck Norris approached him and said, would you please come do this movie? And he, of course, looked at the script and he said, what part do you want me to do? And they said, Mr. Miyagi. And he's looking at that, he's going, well, that's here, 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 here. And he goes, no, I'm not an actor. I can't do that. But they convinced him to stay on to become a stunt double for all those movies and teach all the other actors what they needed to do. So he was extremely well known in his field. But again, the dojo itself, like I said, 2 forms of karate were there that were introduced. And one of the videos that really amazed me was he did a video. There was a YouTube video you can find on mochi. And mochi is the art of pounding rice into a paste and then steaming it. And it's all hand-intensive labor. It goes way back centuries. And this YouTube video shows dozens and dozens and dozens of people in front of that dojo watching him and filming him and learning about that. So not only did he just teach karate, he taught the whole culture. And again, one of the things that amazed me, there's a movie called The Real Miyagi that talks about his life. And in that, I was amazed that one thing that really struck me was Billy Blanks, who's a black actor, said in that interview, I was so impressed with him and his skill. At a time in the United States, and especially California being conservative right after the war, people didn't discriminate against this Japanese man. They saw him for the skill that he brought, and that's what they knew him for. And he said, that's why I took up karate, because I didn't want to be known just as a black actor. I want people to look past my race. And that's what he did. That really hit me. So again, one of the articles here, and this was back in 2013, I have taught here for 47 years, meaning the dojo, on Bristol, across the street from Santa Ana College, and all I want to do is teach. He was one of the first karate masters to come to the United States, train notable actors in these new art forms. Again, the walls of his front office are lined with honors he'd received, acknowledgments from elected officials, and over 50 magazine covers, which he featured. So again, in that movie, he drives up and he goes in and he just takes a tour of this. And it just was so amazing to see the front and the inside and everything else. And to know that was torn down just within the past month, it just breaks my heart. And when I go back, and I can understand why. Because not only did I just stop there, I went and researched it. And so I went back and I looked at the original application and all the environmental impact reports. And you know, the Bristol Street project, the idea, the concept of that, and the first impact report was done over 25 years ago. And so in that, when you look at the historical aspect, they look at that and they say, well, the first thing we did was look at all the properties that were 50 years or older. Well, at that time, that was not 50 years. And then again, in 2014, they just did a cursory review in the addendum, and again, didn't go back and look at the properties. So I think we honestly lost a historical and culturally significant place. So, I mean, I'm thinking, what can we do to prevent that? Again, that's why I would like to have an agenda item to discuss that. But I would see, I mean, you look at the distribution list, and it went to the Sierra Club, it went to every congressman and senator ever, and it went to a lot of people, yet one of the places it didn't come to was with the Historical Resource Commission. I would love to see things like that come in front of this commission, just because of what I just read about the responsibilities of this commission. Okay, one last thing, and that is also to encourage public understanding and involvement in historical and architectural heritage. My comment about that is I want to commend Commissioner Schaefer. This long train just the past week was going south on the Mills Act and the registry and really what was involved and everything else. And he stepped up and he corrected this and put a lot of these falsehoods, straightened them right out. So that was absolutely wonderful. The other thing that was really nice is that thanks to Phil Chen, we had the opportunity to be Ellen Bell, who there's a show on a KUCI radio station in the center of UCI campus, does a show every Wednesday at 4 o'clock called Vintage Orange. So you can look up Ellen Bell Vintage Orange, and you can listen to it, but also she records the blogs. So she came to Phil and said, do you know anybody in Floral Park? Because I noticed that they're having their home tour. And Phil says, yeah, I'll put you in touch with somebody. So I went to the board. I got to select a couple of the long-term residents who have been there 57 years in the same home. So the three of us went on the radio station. It was absolutely wonderful. So I would suggest you check out that blog because it was really nice. We talked about everything from Floral Park to Santa Ana as a whole and the history about it, and also historical preservation. And we talked about what the planning department's up to and the wonderful things that they're doing. So, and also I handed out some brochures, and there's some brochures out front about the upcoming home tour. Again, everybody's invited to come to that and tour the homes. There's docents in every room, so you can learn a little about the homes. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I'll try not to be quite as long, but I want to also welcome Tim Rush, who I learned something about tonight that I didn't know. He's lived here 30 years, and I've lived here since 1984. If I do the math, that's 33 years. I cannot believe I've lived in Santa Ana longer than Tim Rush. He's an icon in this community. Sarah, I'd like to welcome her just because she's new. I was not at the January meeting because I have a conflicting board obligation, and that happens to me every January, so I would be in support of looking at the schedule and doing something different there. I'd like to thank the homeowners. We had 3 outstanding properties on tonight, and I wish we had 20 outstanding properties on, but I'm glad that we at least had the 3 that we did. I'd like to let everybody know that the West Floral Park Open Garden Day is in mid-May. It's the day before Mother's Day, so it's a great Mother's Day activity if you want to, do something fun with your mom. That is a great open garden experience. They have several gardens open. Many people say it's their favorite garden tour that they go on. There's like the Floral Park, there's street vendors and vintage cars and that sort of thing, food trucks, all of that, and it's cheaper. So if you're on a budget and you have to pick, maybe think about that. But it is a lot of fun, and there's cooking demonstrations. There's all kinds of things that go on. And then I also would like to see the fees agendized and discussed. I know that I'm the longest serving person on this commission, and I was here when we had no fees. I was here when we, the budget crisis, and it went up to nearly $10,000 to get your home on, and almost nobody put their home on during that time period. That only benefited the rich, which is really unfair in a city like Santa Ana. I think we need to keep the fees low, my personal opinion, so that we encourage people not just from Floral Park or Park Santiago or West Floral or Washington Square, but throughout the city to put their homes on the registry. I feel very strongly with a degree in architecture that it's the fabric of our city, which is why you heard these people wanted to move here today, in the recent past. And it's one reason I stay here. I love the old homes, the uniqueness, and for every house that gets torn down or modernized too much, rebuilt, we lose a little bit of that. And just go down to Corona Del Mar and see all the McMansions. It no longer feels like the nice little village that it once was when I was a kid and we spent our summers there. It was very different than it feels today. And I do not want to see that happen. I don't have to look far to see homes that have done that in my neighborhood and in nearby. So it has happened. It's not that it won't happen here, and we need to protect these the fabric of the neighborhoods. I think it's very, very important. Every house that gets vinyl windows put in, it's just like a sliver cut off, what we're trying to accomplish. So I would love to see a healthy discussion about that and the value that this adds to the community. Thank you.
I was sent an email from, I hope it's Lita Wilhite. Is that the way that you talk to her? And she says, hi, Alberta, I'm a member of Floral Park's Historic Committee. And she said, our committee developed to help neighbors research the history of their homes for the purpose of applying for the Santa Ana Historic Registry, Mills Act, or just for fun. So, said we appreciate the time and resources the city makes available to residents in the area of the historic preservation. And apparently what they've done is they have a website, is that they go, and she pointed out the history of her property. So congratulations on the work that you're doing, and I hope that you will send this to the Orange Coast part to help the students with trying to make that a historic district on that. But thank your committee for taking the time to develop this to really help the neighbors to research, and then if they have more information than what we have, they can add to this so that it gives us a full spectrum of who lived there or the significance of that particular property. Okay. Now there is brought to my attention, and I know what you're going to say, and I have to address this because that's going to be at our next meeting, and it is all over the city.
Please don't do that in a public forum
Okay.
at this point.
Okay.
Please don't do that.
But I have to let you know that issue has reached every neighborhood in the city. Okay? Comlink, everything. So the city is being inundated with calls on that, and just to let you know. Okay? Now, with that, we will adjourn the meeting to our next scheduled meeting, which will be whatever is decided. No, go ahead.
I failed to welcome Tim. And I have a question. The home in Henninger Park neighborhood you were speaking about, 718 South Broadway, is that the house with the framing on the outside?
Well, yeah,
You can
it's
see
called
the
Carpenter
framing.
Gothic.
Pardon me?
It's got the clinker brick
Yes.
chimney.
Yes,
It's
we
painted
worked
kind of a cinnamon
many
brown.
years ago with code enforcement trying to work with the homeowner at that time, and failed in all attempts. What else was I going to say? There's actually a postcard that shows that home that I have from the turn of the century kind of thing, a vintage postcard. I was wondering, would it be appropriate to bring a photo of this house and a little history to share, like just 3 minutes at our next meeting?
Sure.
Is there room for that? So since the address has been brought up, I can show...
I've had several conversations with Hallie, and she and I agree that it's the only example we know of in the city of Carpenter Gothic.
Yes,
and
and
I didn't mean to make it only
and it is
about
very
that property,
worrisome that it's declining over the years, and its appearance.
Well, it's unfortunate, but
it's
if
very
you look
unique.
at the chain of title on the property, it's gone from like one owner, which it looks like it went from father to son to uncle to brother, back to father to son to brother. I mean, it's the chain of title is so.
So Tim, maybe we can
hilarious
share that
to watch,
information.
and it went from short sale and foreclosure and bankruptcy, and all between these various
but I would
family
really
members.
like to.
In any event,
I'd really like to show the commission a photo of it, and I do have some history on it.
Okay, fine.
Sorry.
If we can add that to the agenda.
Next meeting.
Share that with staff, please.
Okay.
That would probably be the most appropriate way, and then we can get it onto the agenda.
Okay,
I have
thank you.
I have to remind you that this is not for us to be talking about specific pieces of property. We have to be careful because we do need to agendize them. Small directions to staff in terms of following up on things is one thing, but if we do want to discuss as a group, or sharing with some, sharing as one member an experience about the loss of one building is fine. But in terms of having a group discussion, we need to be very careful about that. So particularly if we want it to result in any action. So these items are things that we can bring up and discuss at our next meeting, as well as how we want to handle these things and proceed forward with them, because I know they are concerns with commissioners, and they are concerns with staff as well. And I think that concern is also reflected in the community. So thank you for your patience.
Madam Chair, may I ask the city attorney something? I just want to clarify Ms. Neal's comments. This commission can talk about items. We just have to be conscious of the fact that if we're leading down the path toward an action, then we need to be concerned. But I just don't want any of my colleagues to fear that if they bring up a property, they're somehow violating some sort of statute, because I love hearing what my colleagues have to say about various properties, and I learn a lot up here. But as long as they're not going down the path of seeking action without it being agendized, they're within the limit of the law, correct?
Right. We don't want to violate the Brown Act by speaking of specific properties that aren't agendized.
Well, no, but I'm saying is if they bring up properties, there's not a problem with that unless they're going down the path of seeking an action for that property. So, for instance, when Commissioner Murray, when he brought up the dojo, I mean, he wasn't seeking action on that property. He didn't bring up any specifics to say, let's agendize something on that particular space on Bristol. He was just saying more in a global sense. And I appreciate him bringing it up because, again, I learned from that and I appreciate hearing that. But I don't want him to feel that he has to be silenced because he brought up a specific property, because he wasn't seeking an action on that particular property.
No, I think I'd like to clarify what my intent was here.
Okay.
My intent was because we had two members talking about the same piece of property. I didn't want it to turn into a discussion of that property that would perhaps end up in some kind of conclusion. So no, it was not in any way. And I thought that I made that very clear, that it was wonderful that you shared that information about the dojo, and we really do appreciate it. But it's when multiple people start to talk about a property, its conditions, and that kind of thing, and it could lead to a violation of the Brown Act. And so we would just...
No, but it shouldn't matter if all 7 of us bring up the same property. It's a matter of if we start talking about an action. If everybody's sharing their perspective on, we remember the good old dojo, it's a fantastic facility, I took my kids there, etc., that's not a Brown Act violation.
Yes.
It is?
I did not intend for that. I did not intend for my comment to be made in that. My comment was not related to the dojo, and if you would like to talk about this after our meeting, I'd be happy to discuss it.
I just want to clarify for everybody up here. I'm not trying to have an argument here.
The context was between the comments regarding the House, Mr. Rush's comments and Jeanette Harding's comments, so Commissioner Harding's comments. So, yes, if we want to talk about Brown Act, we can do that. But let's do it after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone. Once again, thank you to all the property owners. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, staff, for all your hard work. And with that, we're going to adjourn to I have to say, future meeting date, because we don't have one. Okay? And we're adjourning at, if that looks correct, at 5:50. Okay? Thank you. Have a great day.
So, good seeing you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Thank you, Ed. That was
See, that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you beforehand. Yeah.
Oh, God. It was very nice.
I think he was headed to a